All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Adams Brothers Podcast. We are joined here this evening with Mr. Daniel Shanetzky. He is a candidate for City Commissioner in District 3 here in the beautiful, beautiful city of Deerfield Beach, Florida. He is joining us here this evening to let everyone here in Deerfield Beach and especially District 3 know why he should be elected the next city commissioner in District 3 here in Deerfield Beach. So good evening, Mr. Shanetzky, and welcome to the Adams Brothers Podcast.
Good evening, and thank you so much for letting me be a part of your podcast. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome, sir. You're very welcome. And
you're welcome.
Just go ahead and tell our viewers out there and that's watching out in Facebook land and YouTube land who Daniel Shanetzky is, and tell us where you grew up and about your education and all that good stuff that you want the voters of District 3 to know about you.
Okay, all right, sure. Well, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I moved to Deerfield Beach in 2001. My parents had always dreamed of moving to Florida. They came here in a honeymoon in the late 1940s, and they fell in love with Florida, and they always wanted to come back. So finally, they came back to Florida, and they were living in Century Village. Unfortunately, my father passed away, and my mom, unfortunately, had a debilitating stroke. So I came to be with her to help her, to look after her. And when my mom passed, I decided to stay. And I've been living here in Century Village, District 3, since 2001. And this has been my home. And I'm a paralegal. I work for a major law firm. I'm also on the Deerfield Beach Planning and Zoning Committee. I was formerly the vice chairman of the Deerfield Beach Cultural Committee. And I've been going to almost every single Deerfield Beach City Commission meeting for about 4 years. And I love this city. This is my home. And I want to give back to my city. And that's why I'm running for office in District 3, which encompasses not only Century Village, but also the great community of Crystal Lake, also the great community of Meadow at Crystal Lakes. So there are major communities that encompass this District 3. I've been outreaching to all the communities and trying to have me know about what their issues are and see how we can help them. And that's why I'm getting involved.
All right. Well, public service is always a good way to give back to the city and the community, and more importantly, the taxpayers.
And your service in the military is commended.
Yes. And thank you for your service too, sir.
Yes.
I was in the Air Force for 4 years during the 1980s, and I was stationed overseas at a NATO's base. It was a Dutch air base with a NATO squadron. And while in the Air Force, I went to night school. And I got my bachelor's degree in management studies. I actually got a graduate degree in public administration and MPA. And I also got my paralegal degree from Florida Atlantic University. So a lot of education. It's really enlarged my horizon. And I want to give back.
Wow. You certainly have an impressive resume, and again, thank you for your service to our country. We appreciate your service. And so you told us a little bit about who Daniel Shanetzky is. So tell us about what would you like to see in District 3? What development, or what would you like to see? How would you like to see District 3 better than what it is right now? What would you like to see coming to District 3?
All right. Well, I mean, what's very important is Deerfield Beach is going to be 100 years old in 2025. Now, when I first moved down to Deerfield Beach, the infrastructure was very poor. I mean, when it would rain, streets would be flooded. A lot of the sidewalks weren't up. It was very poor. So in the past several years, there's been a lot of infrastructure to make Deerfield Beach more accessible to their citizens, to make it more livable. and to modernize it. I mean, it's 100 years old. A lot of the facilities are antiquated. So we're going into the second half of the century. We have to make sure that our citizens have the most modern and best access to water, to transportation. A large proportion of my community is 55 years and older. They have special needs. We have to make sure that their needs are being addressed. Something I'm so proud of that I just recently did. Several months ago, Mayor Bill Gantz had gone to a funeral of a veteran who had unfortunately had a tragedy with his family. And during public comments, he said, you know what, we have to do something to help our veterans. Now, a large proportion of veterans are in Century Village. And I went to the mayor and I said, listen, I'm a veteran. Could I look into this to see how we could help our veterans in Deerfield Beach and especially in Century Village? And he agreed. So basically, I'm working with a program right now with a Veterans Administration mental health counselor or director. Her name is Gertrudis Perez. And basically, we just started in October 17th, Veteran Administration counseling in Century Village for veterans who have PTSD, who have depression, who have anxiety, so that they can have somebody to talk to. And especially the fact that they're senior citizens, they're more vulnerable to loneliness, anxiety. So I'm very proud that we just started last month this program. So now veterans, and it's growing and growing. Ms. Perez has started outreaching, and a lot of veterans are signing up. So I'm very proud about that. Again, I want to do everything possible to make the citizens, not only in District 3, but in overall Deerfield Beach, as accessible as possible to what we have to offer. And that's why I'm getting involved.
Yeah, and since you said the residents, if elected, how would you plan to involve more residents in the decision-making process that we're not doing right now?
Well, I think it's very, very important as many forums as possible, public forums. If I'm city commissioner, I'll make sure that there are public forums that not only I could tell what's going on in the city and what the city is offering and planning, but also to hear what their ideas are. Because one thing about me that, and I'm not going to toot my horn, but one thing about me, my ears, I'm always listening to what a person's saying. And if I could pick up something on how to better, I'll jump on it. I'm very proactive. I'm not reactive, I'm proactive. And I'm always listening what we can do to make things better. If we could help out at least one citizen, I'm open to that. And that's why when I heard that comment by the mayor, I said, wait a second, maybe we could do something to help our citizens in Deerfield Beach. So in answering your question, I'm going to make sure I have public forums, that I'm going to listen, that I'm going to outreach to the citizens in my district and in Deerfield Beach to see what we can do to make the city better. I'll also be observant to what's going on in our sister cities and what's going on to our communities all over the country. And if we can better in any way Deerfield Beach, I'll fight for it. I'll give you an example. When I was a vice chairman of the cultural committee in Deerfield Beach, one of the people had brought up about our neighbors. There were a lot of Brazilians who are our neighbors. So basically, I worked to get a Brazilian International Day. They had a Brazilian International Day. It was about 2 years ago. They had it at the Hillsborough Park. And, it all started from a suggestion. And I'm always open to suggestions and then to try to act on it. And that's what I'm most proud of. So again, answering to your question, to have public forums, to get ideas going on how we can better this city and better its citizens.
And I also heard you say earlier, I think you said you were on the Planning and Zoning Board, correct?
Yes, sir. I'm an alternate on the Planning and Zoning Board, but I voted a few times.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that I'm very, very proud of, I voted several months ago, Holy Cross is opening up a whole new emergency room. It's going to be on US 1 Federal Highway. It's going to be the first time they're going to have an emergency room besides North Broward Hospital in Deerfield Beach. And I voted on that, and I'm very proud about that. So we're going to have a whole new emergency room that will help that whole section of Deerfield Beach right off of US 1 near Hillsborough. The other thing I voted on that I'm very, very proud of on the Planning and Zoning Committee was they're going to be putting a new pre-K child care center right off of Military, right next to St. Mercy's Catholic Church. Yeah. There's a whole plot of land. Every time I would pass by, I would say that's a perfect football field, because it's a big yard of land right next to the church. Well, they're going to be putting a whole new pre-K child care center, which I think is excellent. It'll help a lot of our younger families what to do with their children when they're working. So those are two crucial votes that I'm very, very proud of on the Planning and Zoning Committee. And again, I'm an alternative. Right. I'm an alternate. But I'm very proud of those votes.
Yeah, and my question was, if you can change anything on the planning and zoning, what would it be and why?
Let's see. Well, I'm very, very proud of the chairman of Planning and Zoning. I'm very, very proud of my fellow members. What I like about them, they're always receptive. They're always open to what both sides are saying. And that's something I observe. Again, I'm an alternate. So I've always sat on the dais a few times, but I've always been observing the questions that my fellow board members have been asking. And I think they've been asking excellent questions. They also understand what the laws are, the state laws that you basically have to follow. And they're very aware of that. So at this point, I think they're doing a good job. That's my opinion.
Right. Okay. And one of my questions is, I know that the DOT, they're doing some work on Southwest 10th Street. And I know that's going to affect your district as well as District 2. I believe it's going all the way to Dixie Highway, I think, or Federal. And one of the concerns
to the Sawgrass too, right?
Yeah, out to the Sawgrass. Yeah, they're going to be connecting. They're going to be a way that you could get onto the turnpike from Southwest 10th Street, because right now there isn't a way that you can get on going.
Is that correct, though? Is it going to be a connector?
Yeah, this is what it's going to be. And I want to say for the past 20 years, we've been fighting it. Vice Mayor Dropsky, Mayor Bill Gantz, they've been fighting against it. Basically, it's coming from the state. It's a $900 million project that there've been lawsuits to try to stop it. Unfortunately, it got approved. And what it's going to be, it's going to connect on Southwest 10th between the Turnpike and I-95. And Commissioner Parnes, who's the incumbent, also had been fighting against it. And basically what he says is, all this to give 5 extra minutes to, say, Parkland, make it a little bit easier for Parkland. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of construction. It could be for 6 years. But the commissioners and the mayor have done everything possible to fight against it. But the good thing about it was, from looking at plans and going to meetings, it would have been a lot worse. They actually wanted to have almost like a double decker that would be very, very frightening and convincing looking. So basically the mayor and the commissioner said, all right, we can't win on this battle, but let's try to make it as easy as possible. So it's going to happen. I've been fighting to make sure that traffic won't be too congested, that with the timing, with the DOT, they'll try to make it as accessible as possible while this construction is going on. They're also what they're also saying is the state is they also want to have this interconnector, because in terms of hurricane accessibility, because in the next 20 years, Deerfield Beach is probably going to be almost double in population. At least another 20, 30,000 people are going to be moving into Deerfield Beach. So they want to make it as smooth as possible with transportation in terms of access, that if there's any natural catastrophes, they would have access to the highways. So they're looking towards the future. And again, the commissioners and the mayor, they tried to fight it for as long as possible, but they're saying, all right, if this is going to happen, let's make it as comfortable as possible for the citizens and for the community.
Well, it's hard to fight DOT. It's like an uphill battle fighting those guys. They're like the big, strong arm people that we're going to do what we want to do, and it's not much you can do to stop us. So, like you may as well try and just make the best out of it, because it's like I said, you're fighting an uphill battle. But what I was saying was, right now there is no, if you're going westbound on Southwest 10th Street, you can't get on the turnpike going north or south going westbound. So. Right. I personally think that would be a good way to connect, to get onto the turnpike. Otherwise, you have to go up to Boca or go down to Pompano.
I know. I agree. It's going to make it a lot smoother. There's not going to be, now we have the lights on Southwest 10, so it's like 3 traffic lights. So those lights are going to be gone. They're still going to have local streets. They're still going to have a local accessibility, which is good. But now you can go from the turnpike and ride all the way to I-95, so it'll be more smooth. So hopefully everything will work out. I've gone to Coral Springs and I've seen some of the interconnectors they have there. And once you get used to it, it's not as bad. We're going to be soundproofing. We're going to have soundproofing walls so that hopefully Century Village won't be impacted by the sound. And hopefully everything will work out.
And how do you feel, Mr. Shanetzky, about Daniel, about lowering the millage rate to give taxpayers some relief, or just leaving the money there for projects or for natural disasters? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's very, very important. I mean, I'm a worker. I mean, I don't have great wealth. So every time there's an increase, it affects me and I feel it. So I'm very, very vigilant on making sure that the rates don't go up. If our city could hold it down, I'm definitely for it. But we also have to look at, listen, we need things. We need basically good roads. We need good schools. We need good transportation. And unfortunately, that's not free. So we have to come up with a way that you can have your cake and eat it too. And I'm open always to hearing both sides. I'm always open to compromise. I'm always open to moderation. I'm not one way or the other. And I think the bottom line is we can make Deerfield Beach a really wonderful place for all ages. And that's my theory.
You support changes to the city charter?
Well, I do support, and let me tell you why. The city charter is Deerfield Beach's constitution. And like everything, things change. The environment changes. I remember my mom, God rest his soul, when computers were starting to come out, she was like so flabbergasted, like, what is this? A cell phone? What is this? So things change. So the charter, which is our constitution, there needs to be sometimes, at least every 10 years, a look at it to say, okay, what can we do to improve our government? What can we do to improve the way the city is run? So I'm definitely in favor of changes in the city charter. I think it's a good thing because, like everything, we need always to update. We're changing, we're growing, and that's what the city charter is. So during the city commission, I got up there very strongly. I said, I think this is a good thing. I think it's always good to review and see how we could better, because that's the bottom line. To better, better.
What about term limits? You think you would want to get rid of term limits or leave them in place?
Which the voters just voted.
They just voted. There was a referendum, and the term limits right now are 2 term limits, 8 years. So the voters voted for it, and whatever the voters say, I think.
And I believe that too. I believe whatever the voters vote on, you should leave it. That the people have spoken at the polls. This is what we want, I don't think any politician should go back and undo what the voters has already voted on. So
Sure.
when you
That's
spoke
why there's a
about
referendum.
charter changes, that's why that brought me wanted me to ask you that question.
And what changes in the charter would you make would you like to see made if elected? Because you expunged on every so many years, but so that leads me to think that it was something in there you would like to see change. What would that be?
Well, I mean, examining it right now, that's why we have to have a review board to go through it. I mean, there's so many parts of the charter, and it might be even one sentence to make it like this is outdated. So at this time, I can't really say anything because I haven't examined the charter. I'll be upfront with you. I've looked at it, I've read it, but I haven't examined it. But I'll give you an example. In Fort Lauderdale, they have charter reviews, and I've been reading on what they've been doing. And sometimes it's just one little sentence that, like, this is antiquated. Maybe it worked before, but let's maybe change this to make government more smooth running. So that's the way I feel. That's why we're going to have this charter review board. They're going to go through every nook and cranny, and they're going to say, all right, is this a little bit antiquated? It's like, for instance, I live in Century Village, as you know. I'm on the board of my condo, and we just updated our bylaws. Now, these bylaws are from 1975. I think they were updated in the 80s, but they haven't been updated. And we went through our board, the president, the vice president, we went through each one of our bylaws, and some of them we threw out, some of them we updated, because like everything, things are always changing. In Century Village, when I moved down here, there were no animals. Now people have animals as service companions. It helps them. When I moved down here, children really weren't a part of the village at all. Now there are a lot of grandchildren that are living with their grandparents. So like everything, we had to go through our bylaws and we updated it. And same thing with the charter review. We're going to be going through the charter review and updating it. And I'm very in favor of that.
Yeah, and height restrictions have been a big issue here. Some people I have heard too, some was saying that the charter review, I know I did hear the vice mayor say that the charter review, he thought maybe was a way for people to change the height restrictions here. And I just want to ask you, how do you feel about the current 5-story height restriction now? Or would be something, I know you said you would want to study it, but would the height restriction be something you would like to see changed?
Well, what makes Deerfield Beach so special as opposed to our neighbors in Pompano or Fort Lauderdale or Boca Raton is they don't have height restrictions. Some of those buildings are huge and they're high. And I come from New York. I come from Brooklyn, and I used to work in Manhattan. So I know what it's like to see these high buildings. And it's almost like a concave. What makes Deerfield Beach so special is it's not overwhelming. The buildings are not overwhelming. So it has a very nice, almost like a seagoing environment that makes it very stress-free for people. And I think that's wonderful. That's what gives Deerfield Beach its identity. So I think it's wonderful that there are height restrictions. And that's why I love Deerfield Beach. So when I go into the other cities, it's like I have reminiscent of being in Manhattan again. But that's what makes Deerfield Beach so special.
We were just on before you came on. We were talking to another candidate. He's running for mayor, and we brought up the subject about the COLA, cost of living adjustments, and there was a lot of talk going around the city, within the city, that some of the employees got the 4% COLA. And if you were already topped out in your pay grade, you didn't get the 4%, you got the 2%. And a lot of employees were upset about that. So what are your thoughts on some of the employees getting a 4% COLA and some of the employees getting a 2% COLA? Because everybody's gas and food and groceries and inflation has hit all of us, not some of the city employees, but all of them. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm very, very impressed in going around and seeing our Deerfield Beach workers that they work for the city government. They're doing a fantastic job, whether picking up trash or maintaining our areas in Deerfield Beach. They do a fantastic job. Our clerks, our administrative people, we're all like a family, and I'm very, very impressed by them. Now I know how the cost of living has gone up, and again, I'm a working man. I'm very proud of that. I've always been a working man. So I know what it's like to try to make sure that your bills are being paid. So I'm in favor. If it's reasonable, I think we should reward our workers because they're doing an excellent job. So I'm definitely in favor of that.
Well, they've already voted on that. This is something that's already been voted on. Some of the employees got the 4%, but if you were topped out, let's say if your job started at 30,000 and ends at 60,000, if you've reached that $60,000 max, then that means you don't get the 4%. You would only get the 2%. And a lot of employees were saying that they think that kind of pitted them against each other, because if you weren't topped out, then you got the 4%. But if you were topped out, you didn't. So that's why I was asking you that question. What do you think about? Do you think? Well, let me rephrase it. Do you think all of the employees should have gotten the 4%?
If I believe in merit. I mean, what's important to me is, do you deserve it? I mean, if you're doing an excellent job, and again, this is something between the union and the management and the city. If you're doing an excellent job, at least they should be open to, incentives to make merit raises. So that would be something that I would look at. Again, things could be changed. Nothing's in stone. And I know that nothing is ever in stone. As you could see, the whole world is changing so fast. Things that before you're like, well, this is the way it is. Now it's open. So I would be open to examining it and sitting down with all the parties and listening to what their concerns are and seeing if we can come to a compromise to make all the parties happy.
Right, because you're looking at two former city employees. We both worked there for 25 years, and I can tell you, if I had worked there for 25 years, and then if you had an employee that was there for 5 years, and they gave the employee that works there, that has been working there for 5 years, a 4%, and then they come to me and say, you've been here 25 years, you're already topped out, we're only going to give you 2. I would feel some type of way about that,
Of course. No,
so
I can understand.
That is another reason why I put myself in that same scenario there, that if I had still been working there and I would only receive 2%, which I would be thankful for that, but look, my gas and my inflation and my food and everything has gone up for me as well. You have global inflation, so right. So that's why I wanted to ask you that question.
And Mr. Shanetzky, what are some of the most complaints you hear concerning your district of that area out there, the Crystal Lake area, the meadows of Crystal Lake and Century Village? What are some of the most complaints you hear out there, or things that can be improved and also need to be done out there that you hear from your constituents?
Okay. Well, one battle that we just had recently is with the Monarch Hills landfill, or as it's known, Mount Trashmore on Wiles and Power Line. And what's happening there is this affects Crystal Lakes. It affects Century Village because it's only a little more than a mile away from Century Village, and it's, I think, a half a mile away from Crystal Lakes. And basically, they want to expand the landfill. They want to make it 100 feet more. So I just want to show you something. Mm-hmm. Coming from New York, we had a landfill in Staten Island. It was 22 stories. This landfill right now that we have right now is about 25 stories. If they want to raise it up another 100 feet, it can be 35 stories. That's envisioning that. So this is a battle that would affect my district. So basically, they're going to be voting on it on January 28th. They just had the Broward County Planning and Zoning. They just had a meeting on it last week, and basically they're holding off right now. So this is a battle that I've been involved with since October 2022, when Waste Management originally wanted to expand in October 2022. My commissioner, Bernie Parnas, was on the Planning and Zoning Committee for Broward County. I went out there and I spoke against it. So it held up, and now they're going at it again in 2024, and they're going to vote on it in January 2025. So that's a battle that I'm definitely a part of. I'll be there on that vote, and I'm going to be speaking, and I'm definitely against it. So that's something that definitely affects my district, the Mount Trashore or the Monarch Hills landfill. And I'm definitely against expanding it and making it higher.
Mm-hmm. Are you being endorsed by current Commissioner Parnas?
I'm being endorsed by Bernie Parnas, and let me tell you why. That man has had 35 years experience in living in this district. He knows everybody. He's been involved in city government, not only as a commissioner for 8 years, but also he was on the Planning and Zoning Committee as well. So he has over a decade of experience. And since I've been going to the city commission meetings for the past 4 years, I've been asking him questions. I've been picking his mind. Every single city commission meeting, when the agenda comes out, I call him up and I have him go over every single item because I want to know what's going on. He's endorsing me. The Broward County Commissioner, Mark Bogan, who is a commissioner for Broward County District 2 in my area, he's also endorsing me. Also, last week, the former Deerfield Beach Mayor, Peggy Nolan, and who I've known for several years, and also asking her questions and learning about Deerfield Beach, she's endorsing me. During the summer, I campaigned with former Oakland Parks Mayor Mitch Rosenwald, who was elected to be the state representative in the Florida House, District 93, which is my area. He's endorsing me. So I have several endorsements of key government officials who have been involved in my district for many, many years, and I'm very proud to have their endorsement. They know me. These are very intelligent people. They would not give out their endorsement lightly.
And how do you feel?
Yes.
How do you feel? Thank you for answering that. How do you feel about the city finances right now? Do you think they are in good shape?
Well,
Reserves and everything.
Well, I'll give you an example. I think they're in excellent shape because about 2 months ago, there was a hearing where our credit rating for Deerfield Beach is a AA. And that's very, very significant. Right. That's very, very significant. And in doing research, I think over a dozen years ago, our city was on the brink. Our credit rating was horrible. So to have it go up to a AA, and it's on the precipice of almost a AAA, which is the highest you can go, I think that's fantastic. And that shows the work that the mayor and the commissioners are doing. It's like your report card. Numbers don't lie. And credit ratings don't lie. I mean, you could say anything you want, but numbers don't lie. So for them to get a AA credit rating, I think it's fantastic. The city has reserves. They're in the plus. And there is money for improvement. And I think that's wonderful. So I think at this point, it's very, very good steed right now.
Do you know how much money we have in the reserves approximately? You don't have to give an exact number because I don't know. So that's why I'm asking. Maybe you know.
I know one time about 30 million, I think.
Well, the budget for Deerfield Beach is $320 million. And I think we have about $30 million, which is very good, which is what we need. Because God forbid there's a natural disaster, we need to have those reserves. A lot of the cities in South Florida don't have those reserves. A lot of our sister cities don't have that high credit rating. That high credit rating really says a lot. It shows that banks and agencies trust our city, that we're good fiduciary, and we had to earn that rating. Nobody gave it to us. So I think we're in very good stead right now. And if I become commissioner, I'm going to do my best to make sure that that continues.
Yeah. And also, Mr. Shanetzky, lately we had so many problems with the pier renovations, or the pier. That's a beautiful pier.
Yeah.
We had problems over in the cove and over by the middle school with the drainage. If elected commissioner, what would you do to connect with the city manager to make sure those nothing like that happen again with those projects?
Well, I would try to work as closely as possible with the city manager to hold him accountable. So it was voted last week that we have a new interim city manager, Rodney Brinslow, and he's I, prior in his capacity with the city, he's done an excellent job. What I like about him, he's very proactive, and I'll give you an example why. In our past election that we had in my area, during the primary, there was some problems. There was some demonstration, there was some problems, and people were scared. So our commissioner, Bernie Parnes, outreached to Rodney and said, listen, our citizens are scared. Could you do something? And he immediately got police presence. So at the last election that they had a few weeks ago, everything ran smoothly. If you ask him to do something, he's on it. And I would work very closely with him. He seems to be the type of man that has a lot of proactive ideas. He's somebody that you're accessible to. And I know he saved the city government a lot of money in terms of, I think, parking fines. He saw that there was some problems with it, and we were able to collect some money. So he's very proactive. And in answering to your question, if he continues to be city manager, I would work with him very closely, hold him accountable, and be open to ideas on how to improve our city.
Yeah, and that was more or less the question I was gonna follow up and ask you. The way that Mr. Brimlow was, all of that came about. How did you feel, if elected commissioner, if a situation like that came about when with Horace, Mr. McHugh, and that's how Mr. Brimlow was chosen, if elected a commissioner? How would you handle a situation like that in the future if something like that arises again?
Well, Horace, I know Horace. He's done an excellent job. He's a brilliant man. He's done a fantastic job in his other capacities. But the city manager works with the mayor and the commissioner, and you have to make sure that everything is running smoothly. It's like a team. It's like a football team. You have a coach, and you have your assistant coaches, and you have your players. The citizens in Deerfield Beach are the players. The assistant coach is the city manager, and the coach is the mayor or the commissioners. You have to make sure that everybody's comfortable with each other. You have to make sure that you're all running in sync, so that the bottom line is what could be done best for the city. So in this case, Horace is still part of the team. He'll still do an excellent job in his capacity. But now we're looking at another city manager. And the bottom line is, if it could serve the people of Deerfield Beach so that there are no snafus like they had on Southwest 8th Street or at the pier, let's give them a chance. The mayor and the commissioners will be very vigilant to make sure that the city manager is up to the task so that the people of Deerfield Beach could be served.
Hey, my final question for you would be since we're talking about the city manager, would you be in favor of a national search for a city manager, or would you just be in favor of just keeping Mr. Brimlow, Rodney Brimlow, and making him the permanent city manager?
Well, right now there's still a national manager search. Resumes are still coming in. They're still vetting. And I believe in democracy. I believe in an open process. Nobody should just be permanent. That's why it's always good to examine if another search comes and they're able to look at the 2 or 3 or 4 candidates, I think that's wonderful. The bottom line is, if anything that serves Deerfield Beach the best, if there's somebody out there that has better credentials, better leadership than the present city manager, I'm in favor of being open for it.
And do you think when that happened that night with Mr. McHugh, do you think that hurt our chances of getting a good city manager here after our candidate saw that night? Do you think that would hinder us from getting someone? Someone might look at that and say, "Why would I want to come there?" Do you
I'm
think that?
smiling.
Do you
The
think
reason why I'm smiling, that was a late night. I was there. It was 11:30 at night, and it dwindled down to maybe like 3-4 people in the audience. And so I was in the audience when I heard that. I don't think so, because a city manager, and I have a master's degree in public administration, which is what a lot of city managers have, an MPA, which is like an MBA, but in the public sector. So a lot of city managers are always up to the challenge. They're always open to new possibilities, new challenges. So anybody that's worth his weight would apply to be city manager. Deerfield Beach is an up and coming, wonderful city. I think they would be very happy to apply to be city manager in Deerfield Beach. There's so many wonderful opportunities. So I don't think they'll be discouraged at all. And if people are discouraged, then they're really not up to it. We want the cream of the cream. We want the best in city manager. So I think this is the best way to do it.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So before we let you go, we're going to give you 2 minutes to tell the people out in District 3 where you live here and in the city of Deerfield Beach why they should elect you as the next commissioner in District 3. 2 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, thank you so much for taking this time. I'll tell you why. Because I'm a fighter. I've always been a fighter. I've always been the type of person that if I get knocked down, I always try to get back up. And I think that the citizens of District 3 and the citizens of Deerfield Beach need a fighter, somebody that would fight for their rights to make this the best community and city in Florida. So if I'm elected, I would always be open to new ideas. When I was vice chairman of the Deerfield Beach Cultural Committee, I looked for the best ways to culture opportunities in Deerfield Beach, and I found it with the Brazilian International Festival, and also I brought the Broward College Jazz Festival to several parks in Deerfield Beach. And also being in the Planning and Zoning Committee, I'm always looking for the best ways to improve our community, which I've had with the votes on the Holy Cross Emergency Room on US 1, as well as a new pre-K next to St. Mary's Mercy Church. So I'll be a fighter for you. I'll always be looking for the best opportunities to improve the quality of life in Deerfield Beach, and I would be honored to serve as your commissioner.
Got one final question.
Yes, because I knew this question here was, would you, and moving forward as a commissioner from here on, would you support our long-standing organization, the Deerfield Packer Rattlers? Will you commit to funding more money for them if elected, and supporting them?
Well, I went to the hearings where the Packer Rattlers were there, and I believe it's very, very important to have youth activities, sports. Growing up in Brooklyn, I was in the Brooklyn Little League. I was in the Brooklyn, Football League. It's very important to have things for the children to do. And sports is the best way. It teaches teamwork. It teaches leadership. It teaches discipline. So I think it's very, very important to have the Packer Rattlers. So I would be definitely open to making sure that any way we can keep the program going, we can do it. But I also want to make sure that when we're dealing with taxpayers' money, that leadership is held accountable from the Packard Rattlers. And I think that was a sticking point. We want to make sure that money that's going to them is being well spent. And there has to be accountability. There has to be auditing, because this is the taxpayers' money. So we have to be very vigilant on that. So the answer to your question is, it is very, very important to have sports and activities for our children. It makes them grow up to fine adults. But we also have to be very vigilant to make sure that these people who are running the programs have the children's best interest at heart.
Well,
so you would commit to more funding than what they're getting right now? That's my question that I'm asking.
Well, I'm not going to say. I have to examine. I have to, talk with all parties involved. I would say I would be open to it. I'm always open to things. And that's what the process, that's what the city commission meetings are all about, to be open to things. I would never shut off and say no or yes. My thing is, let's talk, let's discuss, and let's see what we can do to help. Because the bottom line, we want to help the children of Deerfield Beach.
All about
that's
them.
The bottom line. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good answer. That's a
thank
good
you.
response.
Thank you very much,
dad,
Mr. Shanetzky.
Bernard Adams, he for over 40 years, he was 25 years. He was the president of the Deerfield Beach Packard Rattlers, and he's back and now trying to get the people some more people with more people in place to bring back that respect and credibility that the Packard Rattlers has always had.
And it will be back with the respect and the credibility.
Yes,
we'll be there. I
So,
promise you that.
Yes. So thank you, sir, for joining us. If you're just joining us, we've been talking to Mr. Daniel Shanetzky. He's a candidate for District 3 Commissioner, City of Deerfield Beach. Good luck to you, sir.
Good luck. It's a pleasure having you.
Going to be on March 11th. 2025. Good luck to you, and come back and talk to us again before.
If elected, please come back. Don't be a stranger.
Thank you. Thank you so much. God bless you, and thank you.
Have a good night, sir.
God bless.
Thank you.